Hey everyone, my name's Elizabeth Freed and my designer is Yves Saint Laurent. At the mere age of 21, Yves Saint Laurent was already being hailed as the couturier who saved France. Yves Saint Laurent translated street fashion into high fashion couture, finding inspiration from the beatniks of France to Navy sailors to popular art. He revolutionized the way the modern woman dressed, putting thousands of women in trousers for both day and night and created the Le Smoking look, a feminized men's tuxedo jacket, and is responsible for many other timeless looks such as the safari jacket and the trapeze silhouette. Yves Saint Laurent was also the first French couturier to successfully produce a ready-to-wear line Rive Gauche. Yves Saint Laurent will always be known for modernizing the way women dress and bringing the streets around the world to high Parisian fashion, designing for the young at heart. Yves Saint Laurent was born in 1936 in Oran, Algeria, where he grew up. His family was very privileged, and he loved his relaxing, lazy summers spent in Oran away from school. His father owned an insurance business and was involved in a few movie productions. He came from a very prestigious French family. One of his ancestors signed the marriage contract between Napoleon and Josephine and was appointed a baron for doing so. At the age of 11, he saw a theatrical production of Molière's École de Femme. He was so inspired by the costumes that he went home and made paper theater sets and costumes for his sister dolls, reproducing the play to amuse his parents and sisters, Michelle and Bridget. Another fond childhood memory of Yves was seeing his mother dressed up for a ball in a long dress of white tulle with pear-shaped white sequins, kissing him goodnight. As he grew older, he often designed clothes for his mother, who had them immediately constructed by a local seamstress. It is clear that even as a child, Yves was fascinated with costume, fashion, and women. In 1953, at age 17, Yves entered a fashion contest sponsored by the International Wool Secretariat and won first prize for his drawing of a black cocktail dress. In 1955, he left Oran and went to Paris to study at a professional cutting school, even though his parents wanted him to study law. However, 3 months later, at age 19, Michael de Brunhoff, editor-in-chief of French Vogue, took notice of Yves' sketches and their similarity to Dior's A-line collection that had not yet been released. Brunhoff immediately introduced Yves to Dior, and Dior was so impressed that he hired Yves on the spot as an assistant. Yves had endless admiration for Dior and loved working there, but he had decided to leave the house and take up his interest in set and costume design to allow himself some more creative freedom. This all changed, however, when Dior died in 1957 and Yves Saint Laurent, aged 21, was appointed head designer of the House of Dior, giving Yves the opportunity to create his own collections. In 1958, the world held its breath as Yves released his first collection for Dior featuring the trapeze look, a silhouette with narrow shoulders, a raised waistline, and a wide hemline. It was an immediate success, and Yves Saint Laurent was proclaimed the savior of French fashion. He continued to create widely accepted collections until 1960, when his fall-winter beatnik collection featured knit turtlenecks and black leather jackets. Many thought Yves had taken it too far, making French couture inelegant. However, it was a revolutionary collection in that it broke the traditional boundaries of couture and set the stage for the rest of Saint Laurent's career. Later that year, Yves Saint Laurent was drafted into the French army, but was soon hospitalized and discharged due to a nervous collapse. Upon returning to Dior, he found that he had been replaced as head designer by Marc Bohan, and when Dior refused to reinstate him, he sued Dior and gained some of their profits during the period in which he designed there. In 1961, Yves announced that he was going to open his own couture house in partnership with Pierre Berger, his lifelong business partner and boyfriend, along with the financial backing of J. Mac Robinson of Atlanta, Georgia, and thus began the legend of the House of Yves Saint Laurent. In 1962, Yves presented his first collection under his own house, which was an instant success. Life magazine called it the best suit since Chanel. The collection featured the pea jacket and the Norman smock. Yves spoke regarding the collection. In 1962, I put a simple pea coat in couture. I was saying it's okay to wear it. The ones with money bought it from me. The ones without money bought it from a flea market. In 1965, he released his Mondrian dresses, heralded as "The Dress of Tomorrow" by Harper's Bazaar. He continued to be inspired by the street, ethnic cultures, and art culture throughout his career. In 1966, he released his navy coat dress and peacoat collection inspired by his time in the military. Quoted Harper's Bazaar, "Saint Laurent has gone to sea in a spaceship, join his navy and see the world." That same year, he also created his first Le Smoking look for women and his first pop art dresses. He popularized the pant for both evening and day wear, stating, "My sole job as a couturier is to make clothes that reflect our times. I'm convinced women want to wear pants." In 1966, he also opened his first Rive Gauche ready-to-wear boutique, which became a huge success. Year after year, his collections continued to be increasingly strong, with his African dresses being released in 1967, called "A Fantasy of Primitive Genius," shells and jungle jewelry clustered to cover the bosom and hips, lattice to bare the midriff. In 1968, he released his famous safari look and see-through dresses. In 1976, he released his self-proclaimed most beautiful collection titled Ballet Russe, which was noted as a revolutionary collection that will change the course of fashion around the world. It was so popular that it not only showed in Paris but also in New York for his American admirers. Proclaimed Yves Saint Laurent after the show, "The clothes incorporated all of my dreams, all my heroines in the novels, the operas, the paintings. It was my heart. Everything I love I gave to that collection." Another notable collection was his Picasso collection, another art-inspired look released in 1979. Throughout his career, Saint Laurent continued designing revolutionary clothing, with on average about 4 collections per year, declared fashion editor Grace Marabella. Those of us who attended his showings remember the relief of being able to stop our note-taking momentarily as one number passed that was not quite as good as the 20 that came before it, a weak item that by any other standard would probably have been a star. He also continually designed for the theater and the ballet almost every year, including many Roland's Petit Ballet and the Spectacle Zizi Jean-Mer. His Rive Gauche boutiques were widely successful around the world and led to hundreds of licenses from scarves to furs, even cigarettes. Some of Saint Laurent's most famous customers included Audrey Hepburn, Catherine Deneuve, and Paloma Picasso, just to name a few. He also won many notable awards, including the French Legion of Honor in 1985. Yves Saint Laurent was loved by the world, even though at times he was a very controversial figure. He suffered from drug and alcohol abuse, and featured some very controversial advertising campaigns, including his nude pose for his men's cologne Yves Saint Laurent and his perfume titled Opium. Quoted Yves Saint Laurent, "I have known fear and the terrors of solitude. I have known those fair-weathered friends we call tranquilizers and drugs. I have known the prison of depression and the confinement of hospital. But one day I was able to come through all of that, dazzled yet sober." After 30 years of creating beautiful, revolutionary clothes, Yves Saint Laurent retired in 2002 and closed his couture line, turning his house into a museum featuring some of his most influential designs. The Gucci Group bought his Rive Gauche line, directed by Tom Ford. Yves was unhappy with Ford designing under his name, quoting, "The poor guy does what he can." After over-sexualizing the line, today the Yves Saint Laurent collections have been designed by Stefano Pilati, not Tom Ford. Yves Saint Laurent died at age 71 in 2008. Yves is credited with modernizing both the world of couture and the way the modern woman dresses. Even though he was often inspired by menswear, the women he dressed always still looked like women. To many, his shows were the final word in what would be in for the next season. He will always be remembered as the man who brought the streets to couture and as one of the greatest designers of all time.